Peter, are you there, Peter?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Peter? Peter, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, Peter here.
Okay.
Over.
Yeah. Okay. Good. This is the Flipping Houses for Rookies podcast, but I'm in an underground cave today because I got secrets that I want to tell everybody, and I don't want anybody to hear it. You ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We got it. We got to keep it on the down low. Okay.
Okay. Shh. God.
Here we are, Flipping Houses for Rookies, joking around when we shouldn't be.
Well, maybe we should be. Hey, I hear you never win when you get too damn serious. So keep it on the light. Keep it on the fun. Keep it a game. Don't get serious.
All right, here we are, episode number 389.
Mm-hmm.
Here's today's title: Unlock Hidden Profits. Creative deal structuring, rookies who want to be pro. Here's a description. Tired of feeling like a newbie in a cutthroat world of real estate? Are you overrun on the seasoned investor bragging about their incredible deals that you can never seem to find? Are you asking yourself, what am I missing? Well, the good news is this episode is your secret weapon in creative deal structuring, which means it is not just for the big dogs anymore. This could actually be your fast track to deal making mastery. Today, we're going to break down the art of structuring creative real estate like a pro, no matter your experience level, which means you will now be able to see the hidden profit pockets on seemingly ordinary deals. Ninja negotiating tactics that turn no's into yeses with incredible terms. Today, we will expose how you can ditch the bank and become your own lender, even if you have little or no cash. Stop watching others from the sidelines. This podcast is your roadmap to turning the tables on the competition and becoming a deal maker pro. Tune in now and be prepared to transform from rookie to real estate rock star forever.
Cool.
Ta-da! Okay, so first of all, I would like to do the housekeeping type stuff. Thank you for listening to us or supporting us and being here and hearing us or watching us. We record this podcast every single Thursday morning, or most every Thursday morning. The holidays kind of screw things up sometimes, but 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you were to go to Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, that's where we live stream on Thursday mornings. If you go there, you can type in questions right on those platforms, wherever they allow you to type, and I will get those questions right in front of me while we are actually recording the podcast. However, just make sure you ask questions about the podcast. If you have any other questions, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and top right-hand side, there's a support ticket. You can send me or Peter a private message, or you can go to WhatsApp Messenger and sign into the mastermind group that I have called Let's Talk Real Estate. Last thing is, make sure you subscribe and you like us, and leave us a comment about what we're doing, because we like that. Whew. I wish I could not have to do that, but there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So, deal making, Peter.
This is the topic. Yes.
Deal structuring. What does that actually mean?
You actually asking me? You being rhetorical? Yeah.
No, I'm asking you.
Well,
What does it actually mean? I want to know what you guys think deal structuring is before we go too far.
Well, the way I look at it, buying a house is a big purchase. So it's not like you go in a store to buy broccoli and just put your $3 down and walk out. It usually needs some kind of financing. Not many people have the cash. So how are you going to finance it? There's a whole world right there. So the deal to me is, how are you going to pay for it? And most people just think, get a loan. But there's more to it than that. I mean, How many ways could you sit with somebody and say, what if we did this? What if we did that? How inventive could you get? So people have thought of clever things where people can purchase a house and not have to go to the bank and get the loan like usual. There's other ways to do it. They're not new. They've been around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I look at
Good.
it.
Good. So I actually woke up the other morning with a formula in my head.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the deal structuring formula.
Okay.
So you ready?
Sure.
Very simple one.
Hmm.
Correct math plus the correct emotions equal a deal. That's deal structuring. The correct math with the correct emotions equals a deal. Emotions could be the seller's emotions, it could be your emotions, it could be the buyer's emotions. Actually, it's all three of them together,
Hmm.
and they all kind of align.
Yeah.
That's how you make money. But with that said, let's talk about the most important thing in today's podcast
Yeah.
before we get to the math, because today we're going to talk about the math, right?
Okay.
And some of the emotions.
Okay.
I have two deals that I'm going to go over. I have notes on them. We've been doing this now for about 3 or 4 podcasts, and I plan on doing this for a while. These are kind of deals that I have done in the past, or I've helped one of my coaching clients with. So these are not made up pretend deals. They're just deals that I pull randomly to talk about with you guys. Just so it's for teaching purposes.
Right. But it's good to know that they're real ones, not hypothetical. That's
they're not
important to me. It should be important to everybody. These are real.
All right. So the first thing you need to know is that real estate is made to take money out of it, not put money into it.
Mm-hmm.
So real estate, especially creative real estate, but real estate is made to take money out of it, not put money into it. So let me explain this real quick, because this is very important when you're deal structuring.
Mm-hmm.
See, when the seller goes to the realtor, because there's only two ways the seller knows on how to sell a property. It's either go to a realtor
Mm-hmm.
or sell it on their own.
Yeah.
Since COVID, we, meaning investors or private investors or creative real estate investors, have become more and more real to the seller because of COVID, because the realtor kind of got shut down, couldn't get in houses, and we all got clever and started buying a bunch of houses because we're entrepreneurs and we don't stop. On top of, if you go back several episodes ago, the whole thing with with NAR, National Association of Realtors, getting sued, it's going to change, right? So the world is different now. But what keeps the realtor strong is that many years ago, and it means they associated or they trademarked in 1949, the end of 1949, beginning of 1950. And the biggest thing that they brought to a transaction was the ability to hook up with the bank and bring the money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about that, what happens is the seller got used to replacing the money they had in the deal with the buyer's money. And the buyer was getting that money from the bank.
Yeah.
Bank's making a killing because on a 30-year mortgage, you pay 2.5 times or more. I mean, at 8 and 10%, it's more, but at 5 and 6%, it's 2.5. It's 2.5 times the amount that you borrow.
Mm.
So the bank lends you $100,000. If you go 30 years, you're paying $250,000. It's good business for them, right?
Right.
So here's the point that I'm trying to make is the seller has been trained by the realtor to get new money for the buyer. So the buyer is bringing in new money because
Right.
the problem is that, well, let me move on. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, and then we're going to move on. I'm not going to drag this on. I just want to make sure we understand this.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is when you talk to a seller, or any of us talks to a seller, they already have the money in the deal. The house is already bought. They already own it.
Mm.
whether they paid cash for it, or they got a bank loan, or they have seller financing with somebody else, or private money, or however they got the money to originally purchase that property, that money is still in the deal.
Yep.
What the seller doesn't know is for them to get the new cash and get their equity, because they want their equity in cash.
Mm.
It costs them 10% if they don't use a realtor for closing costs, and 15% if they do use a realtor for closing costs. So the money is discounted by at least 10% up to 15%,
Mm.
right? Meaning that they have to give the first 10 to 15% away. The first 15% of the profits, they have to give it away to get the cash.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know that. So in creative real estate, or AKA creative financing, as you mentioned earlier, because that's really what we do, is creative financing,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Because see, the realtor's dealing with the property, the house, the condition, the location. We deal with all that. So the house has to be up to certain standards before the bank will lend the money.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of eyes on the property, and there's a lot of people making decisions for you,
Right.
because it's their money, because the guy with the gold makes the rules. So all the inspections and all the rules and all the laws and all that, there's a lot of people telling you what to do, which is why closings are so chaotic, because everybody's got an idea of what they want. Every bank is different. Every mortgage lender is different. There's so many personalities. It's kind of crazy,
Mm.
right? Where if you just dealt with the seller, you and the seller, that's all that you have to worry about.
That's right.
Right? So if you can show the seller how they could make more money by selling the house and not taking the cash out, in other words, uh, not needing new cash, and
Mm-hmm.
you show them how they could make a ton more money by just holding the house for at least 3 years. Like, for
Mm.
example, a $200,000 house, they would probably net about $170,000 in cash,
Yeah.
right? But if
Mm-hmm.
they held the house and did what we talk about for 3 years, they'd make 282,000, right? So that's $112,000 more money by waiting 3 years. So if they wanted $20,000 in cash to go buy another house, it would
Mm.
be foolish to take the $20,000 out of this house and lose $112,000.
Yep.
Okay. So our job is to educate the seller on what they should do to make a decision, and then allow them to make that decision. So
Mm.
what we do is we give them the facts, and we do that mathematically, which is what we call deal structuring. And then the
Mm-hmm.
emotions kick in. Now, some people will be like, I don't care. I'll lose $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
I need the
Yep.
cash.
Yep.
Right? Some people will be like, I didn't know that. Why would I ever want to sell the house? I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still do a deal with us. And the last thing I want to tell you before we go on to the numbers, is this helpful, by the way?
Yeah.
As a prerequisite?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we've talked about it in different ways, but you're boiling it down to the math is one thing, but people, when you say emotions, I would call it personally emotional desires.
Yep.
Because it's emotions, but it's emotions like I want and you want and he wants and all this emotion tied in. And you have to try to navigate that and see if you can actually get that for a person. Because they have
That's a
these
good point.
ideas. I need it for this, I need it for that, and the emotion. So I think it was emotional desires. How do you like that?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. But it definitely is emotions. It's not just desires. It's a lot of feelings involved that have been there for months or years, plans, and they got these ideas. Oh my God.
Good. So the final point that I want to make before we go on to the numbers is this: that when you're paying cash or replacing the money in the seller's property,
Mhm.
and you're using the bank or some sort of a lending institution or private lender that has made the rules for you, right?
Yeah.
What happens is you're changing the deed,
Mm.
right? Actually,
Yeah.
I want to retract that. I don't want to confuse it. What's happening is you're buying the property. So this is no different than me going down to a car lot, a used car lot, and handing the person, the salesman, cash, and I leave with the car. It's like
Hmm.
I took my cash and replaced it with an object called a
Yeah.
car,
Yeah.
right? So when you're buying real estate, it's the same way. You're either paying monthly, you're putting down payment and closing costs and paying monthly for an object. So you're trading an object, aka the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
In creative real estate, we don't do that. What we do is we actually control what's controlling the object. In other words, the paperwork that says who owns the property and who has control over the property, because you could actually do deals and not own the property. You can just control them,
Hmm.
aka a lease option.
Right.
So you could lease a property with an option to purchase from a seller and have full control over the property.
Hmm.
The seller walks away with no obligations. You can have full control over the property but never own it and make a crap load of money. So the difference between what others do in real estate and what we do is we deal with what is controlling, what paperwork controls the deal. Who's in charge of making the decisions on this piece of property
Hmm.
and when and how? Now, I want to really make a very important punchline here. When you learn how to do this, you become the banker and make the rules. Once you acquire the permission from the seller to control the property, you then become the bank because you're controlling the money. You make the rules, not the
Hmm.
bank. So when you go sell that property, which you could sell it for cash, you could sell it on a lease option, you could sell it on a mortgage, you could finance it for somebody for 20 years. However the math works best for you
Mm.
is how you would sell that commodity or that object. So most real estate is buying and selling houses. What we're doing is we're buying and selling the documents that control the house, which means a lot of times we don't have to deal with repairs. We're going to go over that in one of the deals we have here today, right? You don't have to worry about repairs. You don't have to worry about being a landlord because you're going to make your buyer responsible. You're just a bank.
Mm.
Once you acquire the right documents from the seller and become the controlling piece or the controlling entity, then after that, you make all the rules. And that's what we're doing in creative real estate. So this is the reason why if you watch some of our older videos, because we are on podcast number 389, right? I mean, we've got a lot of podcasts, a lot of data, and we've evolved,
Mm.
and we've because we do so much, or at least I have so much. I've explained this. I'm in 3 coaching groups. I own software, a software company called Creative REI Reply that is about to explode in 2024. I'm going to show you a video after we're done here where I have a meeting with somebody next week where I actually think that we can upload a script and you could put a 2-minute video of you speaking and it could make you this software turns you upload the script. I'm going to start over. You go into the software, you upload a 2-minute video of you're talking.
Hmm.
It makes that your avatar and you upload a script and it makes it turns your avatar into a video and you're giving the person the offer and it looks like you're talking to them.
Mm.
And we're
I've
adding that to Creative REI Replay this year.
I've seen those on Facebooks. Like
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves starts talking about he was losing his hair and he bought this shampoo. And you look closely, like, that's not him really talking. But, there's shampoo there if you want to buy it. So, yeah, you're seeing that.
Anyways, I sidetrack. I don't mean to do that. The point that I'm trying to make here is that once you understand that you can control the paperwork
Mm.
and control the property, Nelson Rockefeller said the way to build wealth and keep it is to own nothing and control everything.
Yeah.
So we don't need to go find the money to replace the money. We can if we get deep discounts.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could be the banker by just making sure that you have the right controlling documents with the seller. Now, here's the most bizarrest thing in the world, because as humans, we make things complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true.
We have this thing called a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer. Go to Flipping Houses for Rookies, you'll figure it out, right? Here's the most craziest thing in the world. I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have in the past actually rented from a landlord, either a house or an apartment or something, you've learned 90% of what it takes to do this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually building a webinar right now, which we're going to release pretty soon. And it's exactly that. I'm going to teach in this webinar how you can do the other 10% to turn it into a huge profit. Right? So 90% of it already. Why are you making it all difficult?
Mm-hmm.
Why
It's
do you
true.
think you're missing something?
Yeah, well, you're leasing from the seller and then leasing to the buyer. So you write 2 leases and then 10% more, but it
Right.
really is that.
Yeah, so you're getting a seller to do a lease with an option with you, and then you're going to sublease it to somebody else and make money.
Mm.
It's like that's the gist of career real estate. But
Mm-hmm.
that lease with an option to purchase is what's controlling that property.
Yeah.
Do you see? And that's what you need to realize is that's creative real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we did it for hundreds and hundreds of years. We didn't have realtors. We didn't have all this stuff we have now, and banks and loans and computer. We didn't have none of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you wanted to buy a piece of land, hell, in the beginning, the government gave away land,
Mm-hmm.
right? They would have land parties, and you've seen it on TV and movies, I'm sure, where people would they'd get a plot of map and they'd start and they'd shoot the gun and people would run out and they would put their flag and the stake in the ground and they got the land.
Yes. Reference
Right?
movie Far and Away. Watch that.
There
You'll
you
see.
go. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, enough chitter chatter. I think you understand that what we're doing is we're controlling the paperwork that controls the property.
Right.
Which, by the way, the technical term for that is title.
The title to the property.
Yeah.
Meaning
So-
whose name is written down. The title
Yeah.
of somebody's name
So
is written
the
somewhere.
deed is the proclamation or the pronouncing of that this person is the title. It's kind of like the CEO of the company.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be working there. They don't have to do anything. They're just their name is. It's like the buck stops with them. They make the final decisions. But if you don't write it down and you don't put it on record, who knows?
Mm.
So title, the title of the company means who's in charge. It's like a job description. Like, what's your title in
Mm-hmm.
this property? Well, I'm the owner. My title is owner.
Yep.
Right. And the deed puts it on public record that you're the owner. Right. So we're not dealing with the deeds, we're dealing with the titles.
Mm-hmm.
Who's actually in charge of the property. And we're making agreements with them. Okay. So let's get down to our first deal.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to get a straight answer from you. I wish I had a real rookie here.
Okay. Want me to pretend?
Because you know me too well and you've heard things too many times to answer this question.
Okay.
But here's the question. So if a house is worth $200,000,
yeah,
and they owe $210,000,
oh,
is it a deal?
No, you can't buy that. There's no equity.
So the payments, because realize that there's really four ways to make money on real estate, but we only
Hmm.
talk about two because two of them are hypothetical. So the four ways to make money on real estate is equity, buy low, sell high,
Hmm.
cash flow, which means monthly cash flow.
Hmm.
Then you have depreciation and appreciation. But we
Yeah.
don't count on depreciation and appreciation because those are not in our control.
Hmm.
So we don't use them in our math. However, we do make money with them. And oh, yeah, by the way, if you are curious, the Grand Slam offer that we talk about all the time encompasses all four of those parts. That's where they came from. That's where the Grand Slam offer came from is how much equity, how much cash flow, how much depreciation, how much appreciation, right?
That's right.
So here's my point. In this particular case, we say there's only two ways to make money with real estate. And we
Hmm.
say the equity, buy low, sell high, and the cash flow.
Yeah.
So if we don't have equity, which by the way, do we not only not have equity, but we have $10,000 more, we owe more. So it's actually negative equity,
Yeah. -10.
right? So
Yeah.
it's only 90%. It's actually the equity is yeah, it's negative.
-10.
Yeah. The second factor
Yeah.
we need to know is the payments are 1580 with 1580 and current with 27 years left to pay. The house is vacant and it's pretty.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what does pretty mean? I want to clarify that.
Well, pretty means it's normal house. It's livable. It doesn't have to be completely renovated, but the insurance company would give you insurance on it. There's like a
Yeah.
boiler, the electricity runs. It's okay.
Pretty to me means anything anything less than anything more than $5,000 is not a pretty house. So you could spend $5,000. You could paint a room, you could
Hmm.
re-landscape, you could. Now, the rule we have is if you don't get a deed in your name, you don't put any money in a deal. And I'm going to show
Hmm.
you that in a minute.
Hmm.
Okay. So in the world of real estate, not in Bill's world, because I don't want you to blow $5,000, but in the world of real estate, if you spend $5,000 on a piece of real estate, that's like spending $1. It's like not considered real money.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what it means technically is pretty. And on Bill's planet, pretty means you're not going to do much.
Right. Here's.
I'm not going to do anything. I barely sweep them.
Mhm.
All right, so here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
So what did I just tell you, Peter? Which part of
But
the formula? So the formula is the correct math,
yeah. And
and
then the
then the
emotional
correct,
part.
and then you said the desire. So the correct emotional desire equals
Yeah.
a deal.
Yeah.
So what did I just give you? Which part of the formula did
Well,
I just give
we
you?
don't know anything about the people involved, what they want, what they're worried about, just the money, the numbers.
So I just gave you the math, the correct math of the
Hmm.
deal.
Hmm.
So now we're going to dip into what is the emotional desire of this person, the seller.
That's
Right? See
right.
how it breaks down?
Yeah.
So the seller is getting a divorce and leaving town, but credit conscious and knows he is over leveraged and doesn't have the money to bring to the closing if he were to sell it with a realtor,
Right.
because he would need a lot of money. I mean, on a $200,000, he would need anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 for closing costs, right? 10 to 15%, right? 15%, 15% would be $30,000 in closing
Yeah.
costs plus the other 10. That would be $40,000.
Right.
So it'd be twenty to $40,000. I said 60. I was wrong.
Yeah. And
Okay.
he'd have to pay for that. He can't come out of the house. It isn't there.
Right.
So it's not a good deal for him. It's a
Okay.
problem.
So let's pause for a second and before we do the numbers
Mhm.
and let's define something.
Yeah.
What is the definition of equity?
Well, real equity is whatever profit you actually get after the house is sold. You can talk about it theoretically in advance, and people do, but you really find out in the end what it turns out to be. And it's sometimes a bit different than you expect.
Okay, so the best way, that's a good definition, Peter. Good. The best way to explain this is equity is synonymous in real estate with other businesses as profit.
Hmm.
So, what is a profit? A profit is the amount of money that you get minus your expenses.
Yep.
That's your profit. And
Yep.
there's gross profits and net profits, right? So
Hmm.
here we're talking about net profits. So you sell a pencil for $1 and you subtract all your costs, which includes, making the pencil, all the labor, the storage, the lights, the insurance, whatever you want to do there. And at the end, you have a profit, aka spendable cash.
Yep.
So that means with equity, the only way that you can get equity is with the amount of money that's brought to the closing table. So equity is like you said, misused because people think, oh, well, my house is worth $300,000 because that's what Zillow says,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I only owe 150. I have $150,000 worth of equity.
Mm.
Well, what happens if you don't get $300,000 at the closing table? What happened? You didn't count the closing cost. You didn't count the money. You didn't count anything. You just
Yep.
took the 300,000 and did a gross number.
Hmm.
But on $300,000, you're probably only going to get 270,000. So right away, your equity, you don't have $150,000 worth of equity. You got 120,000,
Yep.
right? So it's the amount of money that's brought to the table. So equity, once you understand that, is a funny thing. Because what most people don't know is you can create equity in deals. Equity is not it's like gravity. It's just there and you have to accept it.
Yeah.
Equity is not like that. Equity is a controllable part of the deal.
Well, people would understand if they're doing a renovation. You get a bunch of guys, you take 3 months and you put $50,000, $60,000 into a property to fix it up, and you hope you get that back and more. But that's like a lot of hard work to get that equity. We got a different way, right?
So you are correct, Peter. That's a great example because what's happening is you're adding value to the deal.
Hmm.
So the value that we add to all of our deals is we're going to sell this house on a lease option, aka in our advertising, it's going to be house for sale, no bank qualifying. And 80% of the market looking for a house don't qualify for a mortgage with a bank.
Mm.
Now, the quick example of this is because I deal with all Macs, so that's why I use these numbers. So if I were to sell my computer for $1,000 today, sell it to you, and you gave me $1,000 worth of cash, how much did you pay me?
Yeah, $1,000.
$1,000,
Yeah.
right? But if you paid me $1,000 today and swiped your credit card and paid it over to 2 years, you're no longer paying $1,000, correct?
Right.
This is the American way. I did not make this.
Mm.
So if you're going to buy a house and you don't qualify for a mortgage and you can't bring me the money, then that means that the price of the house is going to be different.
Yep.
Right? We used to do this in seminars, right? They say somebody that's willing to talk about their finances for a second, raise your hand. They would raise their hand, right? How much did you pay for your house? Well, I paid $170,000 for your house. So did you pay for cash? No, I didn't. I have a mortgage. Okay, how much is your mortgage payment? And then we would go out over the 30 years and say, well, you paid 2.5 times that.
Yeah. You
Right?
do the math, like times 300, the payment times 360, which is 30 years of payments.
They paid
Right.
$425 for the house.
Yeah.
They didn't pay 170. They paid $425 for the house.
Yeah.
If they paid it off, right? So that's what happens here. So on this house that's worth 200,000 and they owe 210, we need to create, because we're controlling this deal now. Remember, we're not buying this deal. We're just controlling this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the seller is going to gladly let us do it because they can get the house off their back, not have to worry about it, not have to be a landlord, an accidental landlord, and actually walk away because we come in and say, we can do this deal. Just let us control the property for you. Let us
Mhm.
be your AKA property manager.
Mm.
Let us do it for you.
Yeah, well, he has a
And all you
choice
have,
of losing $30,000 or so, or walking away with zero debt. Like, what would you pick?
and oh yeah, by the way,
Mhm.
I'm going to get the buyer to pay all the closing fees. See, a realtor would get the seller to pay the closing fees. I'm going to get the buyer to pay the closing fees.
Mhm.
And here's how we would do that. So this is kind of a yucky deal, but a rookie should do this deal. I would sell this house because you can go up to 10% higher than the market value when you're selling.
Mhm.
So you can go 5 to 10%. I usually like to do 5%, but I arbitrarily pick numbers. So I could sell this house for 220,
Mhm.
right? They owe 210. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign a lease with an option agreement with my seller for a minimum of 3 years. And if he owes 210, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably going to get a 7 to 10 year lease with this guy or girl,
Mhm.
because I'm going to tell them I need that long to pay down that money,
Yeah.
right? So because they owe $10,000 over market value, right?
Mhm.
Now, by the way, how do they get $10,000 over market value? It doesn't mean that
Mhm.
they have a loan for 210,000. That means that they they uh, they bought the house and they borrowed money from daddy.
Mhm.
So they're trying to pay back the mortgage, and they're trying to pay back daddy, and they're
Mhm.
trying to get back their repairs, right?
Yeah.
We have a deal right now. I'm doing a deal in Florida right now. That's exactly what I'm going through. Girl's got $80,000 into it. One day she wants to walk away from the 80,000. Another day she wants it all back. Right? I haven't. I mean, I've been to the house. I haven't closed her yet, but I'm close.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, good.
So the point is this, that we're going to sell this house for 210.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 220. 220.
Yeah.
Right. Now, here's the amazing thing that I'm going to ramble right past this because I want to move on to the next deal because we only have 20 minutes left. I'm going to ramble right past this, but you should listen to this a couple times because what I'm going to tell you should be the biggest aha moment of this podcast. When this person now, currently as of this podcast, we've been at least 15 years on a 5% or below interest rate with the banks.
Mm.
This current year, they've gone up to 8%. So that means this $1,580 includes the taxes, insurance, and the bank payment,
Mhm.
right? It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
Yeah. At
Yeah, included.
what? At 3-4%?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When we figure out our payment, we're not good. So this is a huge part of the formula that I have trouble with my coaching clients because it takes sometimes a long time for them to get this.
Yeah.
We're saying we're going to do a lease with an option to purchase with the seller. It's really backwards because really what we're doing is we're doing an option agreement. We're actually buying the house and asking the seller to carry a lease until we can pay them off.
Mhm.
In other words, I want to buy your house. I'm going to give you an option agreement. It's completely my house. I'm controlling this house with an option agreement, which an option agreement means that you have a small equity share. So because you're part owner now, it's a non-controllable equity share. In this case, it's much bigger than that. But because you're controlling the property and you're an property, you don't need to have a license
Mhm.
because you're an equity partner.
Yeah,
With
we give the
the
guy
option
$150,
agreement automatically does it.
$100.
Right.
We give him some money, uh, with the option.
Right.
You
So
pay,
we
pay.
end up becoming part owner of the property, right? And
Yep.
now we can sell it with a license. So here's what happens is we are going to sell this house to our buyer and tell them we're giving you a 3-year lease, which is an intermediate mortgage, to go get qualified to cash us out.
Mhm.
Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make here is we don't use rentometer for the income. What
Mhm.
we do is we take the $220,000, We
Yep.
put it into a mortgage calculator at 8%, not the 4% or the 3%. And we get the new number because when they go get their loan, they're going to have to pay 8%. And they're not going to get the loan at 3% or 4%. So you want to set them up to be ready for that new payment.
Yeah.
You don't want to rent to them for the 1580 and then all of a sudden they got to pay 2300. They'll never go get a mortgage.
I wouldn't.
Right? Who wants their money to go up like that? So you're
Mhm.
better off to start high, and then when they go get a mortgage, they get a lower payment.
Yeah, that's called incentive, right?
Right.
It's also reality. That's what's going to happen.
It's also the cash flow. Right? So here's what we're going to do. I should have done that number. I didn't do that number. I apologize for that, but I should have done that number. Let's say that number is, let's say that number is 1900.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the first thing you got is 1900 minus the 1580. That's $320 a month.
Yep.
Times 36 months, that's $11,520.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for doing math.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to sell this house for $220. We're going to get $10,000 down, which is 5% for a down
Mhm.
payment,
Mhm.
right? Which is FHA requirements, right?
Mhm.
There are some loans for 3%, but we don't do those. 5% is $10,000. We're going to get $10,000 now, right? And we're going to get $300 and something a month. Now, is that a great deal? No. But it's a deal. If you've never done a deal before, this is a deal that nobody else will want to do. And it will be easy for you because what is the formula, Peter? The correct math plus the emotional desire equals a deal.
Yeah.
Well, so we just did the math, so we can make money on this deal, right?
Mm.
So in this particular case, if we just took those two things, we made $21,520
Right.
because we got $11,520 for cash flow over 3 years,
Mm.
plus we got $10,000 now, so it's $21,520 doing a deal that's $10,000 more than its market value that nobody else can do. And
Right.
the emotional desire is the seller can walk away, not worry about that house anymore, and not pay out of their pocket the $20,000 to $40,000. You think they're going to say yes?
I would do that rather than losing the money.
Right.
Sure. And I know saying they used to say that an average flip was $26,000 profit. I'm sure it's like a little higher number now, but you compare that 21,000 to doing a whole flip and maybe making $30,000-$40,000. But how much time do you have to spend on a deal like this to make the 21,000? It's a few weeks.
Peter, thank you. I was going to move on to another deal. I almost forgot the most important part of this deal.
Yeah.
This all can happen within 30 days.
Yeah.
Once you find the seller, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get the seller to sign the option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Go find your buyer, do the lease with the seller, do the lease, right?
Mm.
And it all can happen. It can all happen within 30 days. And oh yeah, by the way, the other thing is you don't have to stay in the deal.
Mm.
You can not make the $320 a month and not be on the hook for it and just make the 10 grand and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of the lease being with you and the buyer, it could be between the buyer and the seller, and you just get paid the $10,000 for matchmaking.
Yep.
You could do that too. So who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to go find a lease with an option that the guy owes 210, it's worth 200, right? Who would want to find that deal? You can make $10,000 within 30 days. Next deal.
Mm-hmm.
House is worth $200,000. They owe 172.
Okay.
Payments are 1080, but they're 3 payments behind, which is $3,240.
Yep.
House needs a little bit of work, just cosmetic, nothing major.
Mm.
That's the math, right? The correct math plus the emotional desire. I like that you added that desire there. That's pretty cool.
I like that, huh?
The emotional desire equals a deal. So the math is it's worth 200,000. They owe 172, and they're $3,240 behind on payments.
Mm.
That's the math.
Hmm.
The emotional desire is the seller lost their job and are going to transfer out of town to get a new job
Mm.
and start over again. Clean slate.
Right.
The house is stopping them right now.
Sure.
Now, Peter, let's just put some reality to this. We were just talking about this deal that I'm doing in Florida,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days from now, 2 days from now,
Yep.
our
She's got
seller has a moving company coming and she's going from Florida to Atlanta because of exactly the same situation.
she's got a job. She hasn't had a job in a year. And now she has a
and
job. She's going.
she can't afford to pay, or she doesn't want to pay the mortgage on this house, the new rent, and her new car payment. She can't afford to do all three. So the house is stopping her because she doesn't have a car. She sold her car during COVID. So the house is stopping her from getting a car and stopping her from living a free life
Yeah.
because of her payment. This exact deal. It's happening to us right now.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out the loan to value ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to type in the calculator $172,000. We're going to hit the divide button, and then we're going to push in $200,000, and we're going to hit equals.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes up with 86% loan to value ratio. Now, if you're anywhere near or around me and Bill's planet, you can see our chart, which means that you can do a rent to own, which means you have 15% worth of equity, and you can get 20 or 25% worth of cash flow.
Right.
So this is a true sandwich lease option where you stay in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
And
what
the
about
seller,
those payments?
and the seller doesn't have 15% equity in the house, because if he were to sell it, it would cost him 15% to sell it, and you wind up at zero, minus the $3,000 he owes anyway. So there's nothing keeping him to the house financially. He's like a wash.
Not getting any money. They're not
He's a
going to get any
wash.
money.
Nope.
Yeah.
You have
So-
to explain that to people. They think they're going to get it. No, the closing cost. I mean, Zillow says 11%.
Right.
Conservatively.
Right.
You put the 3,000, and you're there.
Yeah. That's right. So, well, the 11% is that doesn't include their legal counsel, and there are certain things that Zillow can't figure out.
Yeah, so that's the conservative, so that gets people from 5% to at least that. You add a few and you're there.
Right. So that's a good point because they're walking away with no money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Now watch this.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do about the $3,240?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you don't have $3,242? Actually, let me start with what happens if you do have $3,240. Well, if you're a guy, tell your wife you're going to spend $3,240 on cigars, and she'll take that money away from you so you can't spend it. I'm joking around. Right?
Not by much.
The point that I'm trying to make here is I don't care if you've got $1 million in the bank. Until you learn how to do these transactions without money, you never learn how to do these transactions.
Mm.
And then later on, when you know how to do them without money and you're clever with them, then you can use your own money and not pay all the fees for lending, for the lenders and private lenders and all that kind of stuff when you get better. But for now, you have to act like you don't have that money.
Okay.
So first of all, what's the house worth, Peter?
200.
Good. So what are we selling for?
Oh, that's a good point. We could sell for anywhere between 210, 15 to 2020.
Right. So it's 5 to 10%, right? So it's between 210 and 220. So I would pick 220.
Yep.
Right. So on $220,000. So if you take 220,000 and you multiply it by 5%, that means $11,000 down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's another trick there, which I'm not going to talk about today. Well, you could ask for 10% down, and take 5% now and 5% in monthly payments over the 3-year lease. So you have more
Right.
cash flow.
Right.
Okay. But right now we're going to get $11,000. So
Mhm.
where's that $3,240 going to come from?
Well, it can come from the deposit.
Right. So if we take 11,000
Mhm.
minus 3,240 means we make 7,760.
Mhm.
So wait a minute. Whoa. Let's just stop for a second.
Mhm.
What job do you have?
Mhm.
What activity do you have? What part of your life do you have that you could work? We'll say 10 hours, which is way too much. You should really be able to do this job this between 3 to 5 hours, right? So you're going to make $7,760. We'll say divided by 10. That you could make $776 an hour. That's just for the deposit. We're not talking about the cash flow we could make off this deal. So if it took you 10 hours to get this property, where are you going to make $776 an hour?
Yeah.
But Peter, wait a minute, because I just crawled up on my soapbox because I get so emotional about this. I want to swear right now. What the F are you doing in life that you can't make $776? What's going on in your environment? Who's disturbing you? Is it kids? Is it parents? Is it a spouse? Is it a job? What is going on in your life to stop you from doing this deal? One deal a year.
Yeah.
One deal a year, you'd make $7,700. Clean.
Mm.
No commitments, no anything. And that's just on the deposit money. We haven't even gotten to the cash flow. What are you doing in life that you can't do this? What's happening with how out of control are you? Are you a total train wreck and you can't control any part of your life to at least do this deal? You don't need training. You're not on the hook. You put up $100 for an option agreement, and if you don't sell the property, you walk away. Yeah, you piss off a customer, but you'll walk away. There is no legal ramifications at all. There is absolutely no risk. So why are you not trying this deal? Why are you not at least trying to find it? What's happening in your life that it's such a train wreck that you can't even figure out 5 or 10 hours to get a deal like this?
Mhm.
Why is that? And I'm being ultra, 10 hours. It should not. If it takes you more than 10 hours to find a deal, you're doing something wrong. If it takes you more than 10 hours, that hurts, doesn't it, Peter? If it takes you more than 10 hours to find and do a deal, you're doing something wrong. Honestly. Even if it takes you 20 hours, even if it took you 50 hours, let's do 77, what was it? 7760 divided by 50 hours is $155 an hour. Do you make $155 an hour now?
Mm.
Even if it took you 50 hours, which is completely, absolutely, stab me in the eye, ridiculous. Now, we're going to get the 30, so we got the 3,400.
Mhm.
Remember what we talked about before on a $220,000 house? How much was the payment? It was 1,900, right?
1,900. Yeah.
So let's take the 1,900, right? 1,900, and we subtract the 1,080, which is the payment. That means we have $820 a month times 36 months is $29,520. Plus, we're going to put the $20,000 on there because we're going to sell it for $220, right? Equals $49,520. I circle back. What is happening in your life that you can't make $49,520? What disturbances? What environmental train wrecks do you have? What mindset are you not applying in your head to wake up in the morning and think, I got to find that deal? Where's that deal? Grant Cardone actually said it best.
Yeah.
Who's got my money?
Mm.
That's Grant Cardoneism.
Yep.
Who's got my money? You should wake up in the morning and say, who's got my money?
Yeah.
Who's got my deal? This is a standard lease option. No, if you've rented a place in the past with a landlord, you already know how to do this. I just taught you the math behind it. Are you worried about finding the paperwork? Maybe that's what it is. Well, Jesus Christ, all you got to do is go on eforms.com for your state, get a lease with an option agreement, which, by the way, that lease with an option agreement will suck. It's not the best. It's not like what we did. We've got 20 years of experience and lawyers come over. So we have all kinds of little things in our leases and our options that are really cool. But your first deal, you don't need that. So you go to eforms.com, you go get a form, and then you go on to legalshield.com and spend $25 a month. And once you write the lease for $25, you have the lawyer in your backyard from Legal Shield. Look at the document to make sure you did it correctly. So what's the problem? I don't get it. Why are rookies not becoming pros? I'll tell you the reason why.
Yes.
Because the piece of real estate that they're negotiating is the hardest piece of real estate on planet Earth to negotiate for. It is the hardest piece of real estate to buy and sell in the world.
And what's that, Bill?
That's the real estate between your two ears. You're trying to convince yourself of something that you know nothing about instead of just getting into action. You don't need massive education in this business. You need massive action.
Mm.
That's what you need. When you're controlling the real estate, you're controlling what controls the real estate, and you're using documents like lease with an option to purchase, and you're using $100 deposit, so there's absolutely no risk. The $100 is the risk. What do you have to lose? What is the barrier? Why are you telling yourself there's barriers? You should just go do this deal just to learn how to do a deal.
The worst thing, and on my worst days, like yesterday, it was not a good day for me. Nothing terrible happened, but sometimes you wind up in the mood. You just want to sit down. Like, I got all these things going. I got that, and then later I got it. I got on the phone anyways, and I sat there for an hour or so, and wound up. A guy said, "Call me now," so I called him now, and I figured, well, I'm looking at what he's saying. He wants to rent it, or this might not work. It's actually close. I got another one to talk to you about. And by the time I was done, and I was in actually a very good mood when I finished, because I sat there and I just worked. And I said, if nothing else, I might learn something today. I might get a little more sure how to do something. I might be a little more sure. If I don't know, I'll go find out. I'll learn one more thing. What's the worst thing that could happen is you could learn more to do another phone call the next day and get your deal. So if nothing else, do it to learn. It's free.
Production boosts your morale.
Right. And I actually had to just sit down and
get them done, you feel better.
Yeah. It doesn't happen often, but we all have bad days. And it wasn't just like, there's no reason. It was just, but I felt great an hour later. I had a great conversation. And people, would you believe this? People thank you at the end of the conversations when you have a real conversation. They thank you because you gave them some ideas that they didn't know. So I could do this for you. I could do that for you. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, can you do this? Like, maybe not. Let me chew it over. I'll check with my partner. You see, check your thing. I'll check my thing. I'll talk to you in a couple of days. Like, okay, hey, thanks a lot. Any other questions? No, I'm good for now, but appreciate the call. They talk to you like that when you're trying to help them, because you're not doing this for you. You're doing it for the seller and you're doing it for the buyer. It's called service. And if you help both ends, son of a gun, in the middle, you make money. What a horrible thing.
You help you and your family.
My soapbox. And then you wind up helping yourself. My soapbox, the end.
So the formula is the correct math plus the desired emotions equals a deal. So just remember that when you're doing a deal. This is kind of like money now, money monthly, money later. Money now, money monthly, money later is the equalizer for the math. what you need to do is when you're making a deal, you need to talk to yourself in your head and say, okay, so I have I have the correct math. Okay, now I need to figure out what is the desired emotions, right? Or the emotions desired. It's desired emotions, right? What do
Mhm.
they want?
Yeah.
And you can get into a whole bunch of stuff like like their situation, and you're going
Oh,
to find all that
there's
out.
stress. I got to leave on Saturday, and it's stressing me out because I don't have an offer,
Yep.
and I don't, and I got to pay for my daughter's college. I thought I'd sell the house, and I'm not getting offers.
Right.
Well, they'll tell you. Just ask them. And I think it's easy to figure the emotional desires of the buyers who can't get a mortgage to buy a house when they find out that they could lease the house and in a couple of years, 3 years, buy it. You've heard them on the phone, right, Bill? Like they go,
Oh, yeah.
honey, you're not going to believe this. We can buy this house. She goes, what are you talking about? We're
Yep.
looking for a rent. No, honey, we can rent this and then buy it. Like what? Where?
Yep.
And they don't care what it looks like.
Yep.
They're not A&E TV. Like, look at my renovation. It's a house,
Yeah,
mother. What do you think? What do you think the apartment's like that they're living in?
we
The
ran
apartment.
we that's right. We ran out of time, but that's how I would sell this house. I would sell this house as a handyman special, so I don't have to do the work.
And they're happy. Oh, we can fix it up the way we want, like we see on TV. We can be those people. Yeah, good luck. It's not as much fun as you think, but it works out. I mean, I've renovated my house several times. This room, that room, the kitchen. It's people do that. Big deal.
So the final thought I want to leave you with is something that you just said that I want to comment on, and then we're out of here.
Okay.
I taught this to you some years ago,
Hmm.
and God knows how I figured it out, but I did. When you have a problem, problem goes away with correct solution. So
Yeah.
if you have a solution, then problem goes away, stress goes away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a human being, most of us will pick the first solution we come up with and then stop thinking about it.
Yep.
So when I was younger, I was kind of, I was a hellion, and I was always, I was 23 years old, and I owned my own business, and I was just a hellion, right? I was always getting into scrapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that when I started looking past the first solution and started coming up with, I wonder what would happen if. And I started getting 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 solutions. I started to notice the more solutions I gave myself, the more options or the more choices of solutions, the better those solutions became. And always, 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 the first solution was the worst solution. And I'm glad I never did it.
Yeah.
So this is your seller. When you're calling them up, they either don't have a solution or they have 1 or 2 bad solutions. And you need to talk to them and give them examples of what it would be like if they use one of your solutions. And I do that because I have a lot of experience with stories from the past. Now you could say my partner and I, and actually talk about me. If you've been listening to these podcasts and use one of my stories, it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. My partner did this one time.
Mm-hmm.
Would that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible what would happen.
Yep. I think I did that yesterday. Good. Yeah. I know a guy who did this. Did that work? Yeah.
We're out of here. So thank you very much for your support. Thank you for listening. I hope that, there's a link in the chat. A link in the description. If you click on it today, I think they're changing the video on it. So if you click on that link today, you're probably going to either see a no video or an old video. But in the next day or two, which is why I put it in the chat, you should go check it out because we're actually giving away a creative REI replay calculator. And we have a new system now where you could actually role play your conversations with AI and actually practice your phone conversations and use the calculator together so you can get good at talking to people before you actually talk to people. So you should go check that out. You should go sign up for that and check it out. Also, make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Make sure you like us. Leave us a comment. We love to hear our comments. And until episode number 390, You need to flourish and prosper and go use what we talked about today. So make sure you listen to this podcast more than once. There was a lot of things in it. Okay? Over and out. And thank you for your support.